Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock, they're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can choose, even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other, please add a word to your mother. They're from the best decades, movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun, action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions three, come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast.
All right, guys, like totally. We're talking Clueless this time around.
As if.
As if. This is one that I think at the time I didn't necessarily kind of gravitate towards. I think I looked at this movie, I was like, it looks like something my little sister would like. So I veered away from this one for quite some time. I feel like I had watched it a while ago and then kind of forgot that I had seen it. So I was going into this one thinking, I've never seen this whole movie. And then I watched it, and I was watching it just a few days ago. I'm like, nope, I have seen this whole movie. So, I mean, I'll get into deeper thoughts on whether I liked it or not later, but this one, it confused me a bit. Because I was like, I haven't seen, I've seen bits and pieces, or maybe I know bits and pieces just because, Clueless was one of the, big movies that everybody talked about at the time. And, and used, the dialogue from all the time. But yeah, I didn't think I had seen it. And then as I'm watching, I'm like, no, I have seen this entire movie. So, shocked the heck out of me. All right, we are the 30-something movie podcast. As you can probably already hear, I have with me my entourage as well. Bo, how are you doing?
I'm well, John. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Getting ready to go to the after party after this.
Excellent.
There you go. Pat?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. One thing I did chuckle at in this movie, too, is there is a scene where I think somebody was arguing through, they're trying to figure out who they're going with after the party is over, and they're arguing about which way they should go and, directions. Well, but if you're going through Beverly Hills, you got to do this, you got to go here. And it made me think of the Californians from Saturday Night Live. Hey, what are you doing here? So, yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it made me think of that. Maybe it's because this weekend was also the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary deal, but I was getting a little extra chuckle during that scene. We do spoil freely here, so be warned. If you have not watched Clueless and you want to go watch it first, go do that, and then come back. We'll be here. As long as you hit pause and then hit play later, we'll be here as long as you need us to be. Make sure you visit our website as well, 30podcast.com. It's got all of our past episodes, different ways to interact with us, with the show, leave us a voicemail, leave ratings, head on over to our Patreon page where we've got more bonus content over there. So whatever you want to do, it's on our podcast. Head over there and check it out. All right, jumping straight onto this one right away. Our trivia pursuits for this one is that it came out on July 19th, 1995, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 1 hour, 37 minutes, directed by Amy Heckerling, who did Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Look Who's Talking. She was also the writer for this one. Producers were Scott Rudin and Robert Lawrence. Rudin did The Truman Show and No Country for Old Men. Lawrence did Die Hard with a Vengeance and Rockstar. Composer was David Catay, who did Scary Movie and Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Cinematographer Bill Pope, who did The Matrix and Spider-Man 2. Editor was Deborah Chiatti, who did The Truth About Cats and Dogs and The Parent Trap. And then production companies were Scott Rudin Productions and Robert Lawrence Productions. Budget was $12 million, box office $88 million. Flickmetrics gives it a 74%, and CinemaScore gives it a B+. Alicia Silverstone plays Cher Horowitz. She was in The Crush and Blast from the Past, and a bunch of Aerosmith music videos, too. Stacey Dash was Dionne Davenport. She was in Moving and Renaissance Man. Brittany Murphy, who passed in 2009, played Ty Frazier. She was in Girl Interrupted and 8 Mile. Paul Rudd, who I believe this might have been his first movie, played Josh Lucas. He was Ant-Man, and he was also in I Love You, Man. A weird name for a superhero, but, you know. Donald Faison played Murray Duval. He was in Remember the Titans and Scrubs. Alyssa Donovan was Amber Marians. She was in A Night at the Roxbury and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Wallace Shawn was Mr. Wendell Hall. He was in The Princess Bride and Toy Story. Twink Kaplan was Miss Geist. He was in Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking 2. Dan Hedaya was Mel Horowitz. He was in The Usual Suspects and Alien Resurrection. Jeremy Sisto was Elton Tiscia. He was in 6 Feet Under and Suburgatory. Brecken Meyer was Travis Birkenstock. He was in Road Trip and Garfield the Movie. And Justin Walker was Christian Stolvitz. He was in Takeout and The Last Resort. So a couple things about this one. The film's costume designer, Mona May, created a lot of the iconic outfits that you see in this and actually probably kind of even set some trends for high school kids, you know, throughout the rest of the 90s and early 2000s and even beyond, because I feel like some of this stuff has been coming back from time to time since this movie first came out. Alicia
That's
Silver,
true.
yeah. Well, I mean, and Bo, you work at a high school, so you see this probably more often than we do.
Yeah, it's amazing how you're like, well, okay, so that's back now. And I read an article once that's how fashion works for so many reasons, but not the least of which is a business reason. You want the things to change every once in a while, so people have to go out and buy new stuff. And there's only so many ways you can crop a shirt.
Sure.
So eventually you're going to go back to the same thing. It's just a very interesting business that I do not understand, obviously, from my look. But yeah, it's something else, man.
You don't consider yourself a trendsetter?
No,
No?
no, and honestly, neither does anyone else.
You know, I also do not.
Hmm.
I am not a trendsetter.
No. I don't think any of us are trendsetters. Well, I mean, granted, we do a podcast about 30-year-old movies, so no, we're not trendsetters.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, you know.
And with the majority of our clientele, well, my clientele, I don't think I want to be a trendsetter. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So, Alicia Silverstone was cast as Cher after director Amy Heckerling saw her in Aerosmith's music videos. There are some kind of fun connections here. This is, and I don't know, first time I watched this, I definitely did not pick up on this because I had not read the other book at that point. But this is part of the, kind of one of the running things about the 90s is kind of taking and adapting older novels into newer stories. And they did this quite a bit in the 90s with some of these. Like this is an adaptation of Jane Austen's Emma.
Yeah.
And then you had either adaptations or you had, you know, kind of modern retakes. So you had Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet was huge, you know, just a year after this. You had 10 Things I Hate About You was an adaptation of Taming of the Shrew that came out in the late 90s. You had, what else? Cruel Intentions, I think, was also an adaptation of a French novel. What else? There were several others, but like in 90s is not alone in doing this, but I feel like in the 90s you had a lot of Shakespeare adaptations. You had a lot of, you know, older novels getting another look. I think you had Great Expectations, had the movie version with Ethan Hawke in it. Yeah, you just had a ton of, and I feel like Jane Austen too. I think there was a Sense and Sensibility that came out in the mid 90s with Emma Thompson. So yeah, in the 90s they kind of, you know, had a thing for kind of taking a look back at some of these older novels. And if you're not familiar, let's do a little English lesson here. If you're not familiar with the book Emma, it was written by Jane Austen, published in 1815, so just a little bit before this movie came out. Follows the character of Emma Woodhouse. She's a wealthy and self-assured young woman who really delights in matchmaking while believing she herself will never get married. She is confident in that ability to orchestrate others' love lives, so she meddles in the romantic affairs of her friend Harriet, often with some disastrous results. Along the way, she is blind to her own feelings for her longtime friend, Mr. Knightley, who challenges her assumptions and ultimately becomes her true match. And the book kind of explores the themes of self-discovery, social class, consequences of misguided meddling in other people's lives. Basically what a lot of high school kids were doing in the 90s.
Right.
So, But yes, you kind of take this movie basically takes and modernizes Emma, and so she is, instead of Emma, you've got Cher, and instead of Harriet, you've got Ty, and instead of Mr. Knightley, you've got her kind of brother Josh,
Mm-hmm.
who played by Paul Rudd, who I think people have established in the past has somehow sold his soul so he never ages.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, yeah. All right. Quick synopsis for this one, and then we'll run through the plot in 10 major moments for you. In the glamorous world of Beverly Hills, high school queen bee Cher Horowitz has it all. She's got style, she's got charm, and a plan for everyone. With her best friend Dion by her side, she gives new student Ty a high-fashion makeover. But when her ex-stepbrother Josh challenges her worldview on certain things, Cher's perfect life takes an unexpected turn. Get ready for a totally 90s ride. All right, 10 major moments. Cher's perfect little Beverly Hills life. She is a stylish, popular, well-meaning teenager living in a Beverly Hills mansion with her wealthy father, Mel. She attends Bronson Alcott High School with her best friend Dion and believes that she has life all figured out, especially when it comes to relationships. This is like right off the bat in this movie. I will say, kind of, Bo, you and I went to high school together. I will say that there's a lot about this movie that seems familiar, but because it takes place in Beverly Hills and everything is kind of like fashion to the nth degree, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
some of that feels like my high school experience, but then some of it very much no.
Yeah, some of it's just in your face and odd.
Yeah, they have, there's a bit of rivalry between Cher and her brother, Josh Lucas. He is kind of the socially conscious ex-stepbrother he visits during his college break. He is constantly teasing her for being superficial. She ends up mocking him for his idealism, and as they kind of banter back and forth, you kind of realize that they both maybe have more in common than they think. And that's one of the things that's funny about her character is, I think, because I haven't watched this movie very much, the assumption I have about her character is that she is very shallow and that she is very superficial about things. But there are times where, and I think it's hilarious, there are times where she even corrects, I think she corrects the college-age girlfriend that Josh has. What does she say? She says something like, yeah, that was Hamlet. And she's like, no, it wasn't Hamlet. She's like, well, I think I would remember Hamlet. And the college girl was just talking about the play Hamlet, not the character Hamlet. And she's like, no, I think it was that Polonius dude that said that. Well, she's absolutely right.
Oh, yeah. It was Polonius to Laertes.
Right. So you get the indication, and I think at that point the Josh character kind of like has this little smile on his face because he starts to realize maybe she's not as superficial as I think she is. Like maybe she presents as this kind of ditzy blonde, but really and truly she actually gets more stuff than we think she does. She's smarter than she lets on sometimes. And I think that also comes out in her, and those are some of the parts I love with her character is whenever she tries to argue something, whenever it's like, well, you had two tardies, she's like, oh, hold on. For that one tardy, it was this and this. And, oh, okay, fine. I won't count that. And she manages to kind of argue her way out of this. This helps, I think, that her father is an attorney, but she's able to kind of argue her way out of almost anything or convince people of almost anything. And it's just kind of funny to watch her do that because she doesn't, when she's doing this, she's not really doing it in a malicious way.
Mm-hmm.
She honestly believes this is a righteous way to operate.
Right. After receiving a bad grade, speaking of some of her manipulations, she plays matchmaker for two of her teachers, Mr. Hall and Miss Geist, making them fall in love. She believes that if she can get Mr. Hall a relationship, then maybe he won't be such a hard grader, and that this would be a really good idea. Her plan
John,
works.
when you were a teacher, if you were happy in your personal life, was your grading better?
It was probably about the same.
Okay.
Now, granted, if I was grading something a little bit later at night, I might have graded it faster than the things that I graded earlier in the evening. Just because I'm like, it's 1:30 in the morning, I'd really like to go to sleep.
Nah. You were young. Sleep was overrated.
I know.
I don't want to jump too far into the reality and teacher weeds and all this kind of stuff, but I feel like so much right now is like an emphasis on equity and equality and how they're not the same and blah, 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 blah. And the idea that treat like so much effort is put on that very thing. Are you with implicit bias? I know I'm going way into the weeds with this, but I feel like that was just recently talked about in actually a class I'm taking. A grad class I'm taking is like, and it doesn't even have to do with like a race component, but the implicit bias of, hey, do you relate to that child? So are you grading them on a curve? Or
sure, yeah.
Do you not relate to that child? Maybe that kid was part of a group that similar to like a group that bullied you in school. So are you grading them on a curve? Or, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like that is so much in the way now for a teacher. Boy, I am going to be the last guy to say that, hey, we're all perfect and we can avoid those things. But that being said, that's the whole idea of bias, right? Is that, you got to confront those things and just realize, okay, how much am I kind of thumb on the scalesing it for, and realizing that there's no way to avoid it. We just naturally, as human beings and being imperfect, that's just what we do. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but and good teachers it's not like this is something new. I mean, I know teachers back in the day, the good teachers would do that as well. But I think it's just such a focal point right now, not just with teaching, but just in society as a whole. Are we treating people equally, or are we treating people differently based on our biases? I feel like we're more conscious of that. Mm-hmm. And so that's, I'm sorry, I know I'm totally going down a rabbit hole that this movie didn't intend, but like that was one thing that stood out when all that was happening with the grades and the kid like talking their way out of it and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think, I sit there and think, okay, now how would I react to that? Would I react like, all right, kid, I'm going to give you credit. You could talk your way through it. Okay. Or would I be like, you're trying to worm your way out of this? No way, man. Full, like, grading with maximum prejudice, right? Like, I don't know. So
as Deadpool says, maximum effort.
Maximum effort. Yeah. So but I found that an interesting part of I found that an interesting rabbit hole that let my brain and mind wander down.
Yeah. So when Cher does this, she kind of realizes that she enjoys doing good deeds. Like, it makes her feel good as well. So she's going to do some more of this. And this just so happens to be the time when a new student, Ty Frazier, arrives, and Cher decides to take her under her wing, giving her a fashion makeover and some social coaching. She tries to steer Ty away from the skater boy Travis and toward the popular and wealthy Elton, believing that this will elevate Ty's status in the school. At a party, Cher's plan unravels when she realizes that Elton is interested in her and not Ty. She rejects his unwanted advances in the car, and he abandons her in a parking lot, and she is mugged at gunpoint. She calls Josh for help, and this kind of starts their bonding process beyond the brother-sister relationship that they have. And we'll state just one more time, they're not really brother and sister. So just in case you start to feel a little weird about that as the movie continues on, they are not really brother and sister.
And how did that work? Like her dad was Paul Rudd's stepdad, right? Is that how that worked? Okay.
Yes.
And then her dad had gotten divorced from Paul Rudd's mother, and Paul Rudd's mother had a new boyfriend we learn about.
Okay.
So they weren't, still siblings in any way.
Yeah. Like, his mom was married to Cher's dad, Mel, but then they got divorced. They were never, as far as I understand it from the movie, they were never even really raised together. Like, he was in college.
Okay.
They didn't really.
Yeah, it sounds like relatively recently, right?
Right. And then because Cher's dad still likes him and treats him like family, even after the divorce, that's why he's often there, because I think he'd prefer to be with Mel rather than his own mom.
Well, and it seems like he's also studying to be a lawyer, even though it's the wrong kind of lawyer. So he and Mel have a professional relationship of sorts, more of a mentor-mentee sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that the Addams family's lawyer is not Ant-Man's dad.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Biologically.
Yes.
Right. Biblically speaking.
Yes.
A biological.
I think the biblical sense is something different, Bo.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. Yeah. You're Pat. You're kind of turning this into like a shared universe between the Addams family, and that because he's an attorney in both movies.
Yes.
The kind of bringing in the shared universe thing. I feel like I had read somewhere that there's a fan theory that Cher,
of course,
is it that Cher becomes Elle Woods in the Legally Blonde movies, like when she goes to college. There's some fan theory that like she goes to college and she changes her name, and she was inspired by doing good things for people, and her dad's work as an attorney, and so she becomes the character in Legally Blonde. I feel like I read that somewhere.
There you go.
Which I could certainly, you can draw those parallels without too much heavy lifting.
Right.
I mean, there's certainly parallels in the story itself.
I mean, I'm going to need some string and a cork board and some push pins, but it's not...
Well, sure, but I mean, come on, we can, we've done more work to connect odder movies. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yes. Cloak and Dagger and Fight Club. All right.
To name a few.
It's absolutely it. So yes, so they start the makeover. This other boy, Elton, shows more interest in Cher rather than Ty. A new student arrives, and his name is Christian, and he captures Cher's interest finally. Somebody catches her interest. So she sets her sights on him as her next boyfriend. She invites him over for a romantic night, only later to discover through Dion's boyfriend that he is gay, and that is why he has no interest in her whatsoever. Despite the misunderstanding, they remain close friends.
And shopping buddies.
And shopping buddies. That's one of the things, watching this, I guess for the second time through, not realizing I had watched it one time through, one of the things that is, even if I was not the target demographic for this movie in high school or even today, one of the things that's endearing about Cher's character is she genuinely, even if she comes across as being a little superficial and a little shallow, she really isn't, and she really is just genuinely seeming to be a nice, good person. Like, even when things don't go her way, she's like, oh, I'll roll with it then, okay. And it just, it's kind of like, it's almost like what you feel like you would aspire a high school kid to be. Like the kind of high school kid that can just roll with it, and the kind of high school kid that, somebody new shows up and their knee-jerk reaction is not to bully them. Their knee-jerk reaction is, that person might need some help.
And every setback is not the end of their life.
Right.
Which is...
That would have been nice if I had figured that out in high school.
Yeah, yeah. I have not words except to agree with thee.
I look back on things now and I realize there were times in high school that I was like, oh man, it's the end of the world. And I'm like, oh, child.
Yeah, the gift of perspective.
May I introduce you to college? And then what I'd like to do is then go back in time to college, John, and be like, oh, child, you think this is difficult? Just hold on a bit.
Yeah, just hang in there. Hang in there, killer.
Hey, hold on. Are you 21 yet? Good. Hold my beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is kind of the old joke is youth is wasted on the young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not wrong.
But anyway, Cher's character is like in some ways, she is almost like the ideal high school student. Like if you could go through high school the way she does, then you're probably in a good spot.
I would agree.
Her confidence does take a few hits here. Ty's popularity eclipses her own at one point. She fails her driving test. Ty confesses that she has a crush on Josh, which kind of bothers Cher a little bit because she's starting to realize that feels weird, that maybe that's in competition with her. Feeling lost, she has an epiphany, and she has been selfish and out of touch with the people in her life. And most importantly, she realizes that her frustration with Ty's crush on Josh stems from her own unspoken feelings for him. So, determined to be a better person, Cher starts captaining the Pismo Beach disaster relief effort, begins genuinely helping other people. She reconciles with Ty at Travis's skateboarding competition and acknowledges that Ty has the right to choose her own path, and it doesn't have to be via Cher's manipulations. And if you believe in life after love, then Cher and Josh end up admitting their feelings for each other, and they share a romantic kiss. So it's a little, if you haven't quite caught on that they're not really brother and sister. This is very much an awkward Empire Strikes Back kind of moment. Otherwise, it's all okay. Later
I saw what you did there.
Thank you. With the Empire Strikes Back thing or the...
No, with the if you believe in life after love thing.
Oh, I try sometimes.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure you knew.
Hey, I got you, Bo.
You were noticed.
Thank you.
Your choices were noticed.
It's nice to feel seen.
I thought so.
Yeah. So later at Miss Geist and Mr. Hall's wedding, Cher catches the bouquet, hinting at her future with Josh. Her friendships with Ty and Dion are stronger than ever, and she's finally grown into a more self-aware and compassionate person. That is the plot. Now it is time for some deeper thoughts.
And now, Deep Thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot. Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
Real quick before we continue talking about Clueless, if you watched the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary thing, they did have a Jack Handy Deep Thoughts moment.
Oh, I loved that. I loved it when I heard that. I'm
wait.
Yeah. I won't say what it is, so Bo, you'll see it when you watch it. But yeah, it was.
It was good. That warms the cockles of my heart.
It was good. I was happy about that. Many things were done that were necessary, and we,
excellent.
Having a Jack Handy Deep Thoughts 50th anniversary style was very nice.
That's lovely.
All right. On this one, when was the first time you saw this movie, and did you like it? I guess in general, we'll get into the deets later, but when's the first time you saw it, and did you like it?
I must have seen it in high school. I have to imagine I was with a group of friends, mostly female, or attempting to impress a female to have consented to watch it, because I believe, as we have stated, not really the audience, but yeah, sometime in high school, I have a hunch the friends I would hang out with always just watched it, and I, watched it then. My wife enjoys the movie immensely, so I've seen it several times, even as an adult.
Is this an annual watch for Donna?
I don't know about an annual watch, because that's not really her bag.
Okay.
Like, she doesn't have those. That's a lie, but she has a very small list of those.
Okay.
Titanic, unfortunately, is one of them.
Oh, okay.
You don't like Titanic?
How many times can the boat go down after 3 hours of pain is the only question I have. Something about it, 3 hours of it, I just can't do it.
I could take 3 hours of Kate Winslet, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but there's other ways to get that.
All right.
I don't know. It's just one of those. I think it's just my attention span can't handle it, and
that kind of thing is not your bag, baby.
That's right.
They do have Gaelic Storm on there.
They do. Trust me, they're in every few years is fine. I do enjoy it.
Okay.
On balance, I think it's the repetitive nature of it that gets me.
I get you.
I
got a question. I got a question for you. I've tried to talk movies with Tammy, and I've come to one incontrovertible fact, and that is, that is that, she doesn't like hearing me talk that much, and I can respect her for that, because, dear God, who would? My question is this: does Donna because sometimes I'll try and talk about movies with Tammy, like, what part did you like and what did that? And then she'll be like, okay, I enjoyed the movie. There's really not much else to talk about. I'm like, okay. What I love about my daughter is that my daughter picked up my genes, because as soon as the credits roll on the movie, the first thing Daniela will say was, okay, let's talk about the movie. What should we talk about? What we liked? Who was our favorite character? And she'll just, and every time it gets a little quiet, she'll just say, what should we talk about now? Let's talk about the movie. So I'm like, okay, so I know genes were passed on. Now, bringing it all around to this, I'm curious, when Donna, you say that this is one of her favorite movies, what parts of it does she like? And I'm honestly, like, I want a female perspective. I want, because I don't think I was the demographic for this movie. I can respect it. And everything you guys said about, I'm totally down with all the positives that you see in it. And there were parts that I found enjoyable. but I'm curious, like, what parts are like to go to, like, yeah, I like this, does she like about it?
I think for her, a lot of it's nostalgia. Growing up in Highland Park, not dissimilar to some of the things we saw in this movie. So I think some of it is she knew these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are people in her memory that belong in this movie or are in this movie. So I think there's some of that. I think and then there's some people in this movie we all knew, like the girl who had no business behind the wheel of a car because she can't stay focused enough to get out of a parking space. We all knew that person, right?
Yeah, he played on the football team.
So I think a lot of it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
I think, we've talked before about how some movies just bring us back to simpler times. And so we're going to enjoy it. And the thing that, and she'll admit this, I think, in public, sitting with us and doing an episode of the podcast actually got her thinking differently about movies. She sat with us years ago to do 16 Candles at the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
To more of her favorite movies. And I think she'll admit that she hadn't thought about them in a modern context like we try to. And she was doing that exercise with us opened her eyes to some things. And I think so she can sit and enjoy the movie and still note the dated themes. And I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. Because there are. I mean, you see some dated things in this. You definitely start to wonder about some terminology that's used, words that we might not say today. But like any art, it's taken, it's a snapshot in time. So some of that's always going to be there.
Right.
And I think, some of the young Paul Rudd doesn't hurt the film's chances with the females. A young Donald Faison also. I think there's that. Yeah.
I don't know why I started chuckling. In my head, you finished that by saying Donald Sutherland.
Wow. Well, I did stumble on his name because I've stumbled on it before.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure I said it right. But, we were actually talking as we were watching it that the cast of this movie is kind of impressive when you really look at it.
Like the people that, and we talked about Mallrats, last time, and we're like, some of these people went on to do bigger and better things. And
Wallace Shawn's in there, just everybody in this movie, oh my God.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like here, I think. And I think that's what she picks up on.
Nice. All right.
So, Pat, what about you? When was the first time you saw this? And it sounded like, I don't want to give anything away here, but it sounded like from a little bit of mini conversation before we started recording that maybe this one was not quite your bag, maybe?
Maybe.
I saw it 36 hours ago.
Okay.
And I just will say, I don't think I'm going to quote my mother and I'm going to quote my wife. And I like two, incredible human beings that put up with me. So God bless them both. But my mom would just, when I try to show her a movie, right? Mom, you've got to see Terminator 2, or Mom, you have got to check out, whatever. She'll just say, oh, Patrick, I just don't think I'm the demographic for that. I mean, I know you're into it, but I just don't think that was meant for me. And I'll just quote her and say, I just don't think this movie was meant for me. That being said, I totally don't want to yuck anybody else's yum. And so I'm not just holding back on my comments. I mean, I have zero dislike for this movie in my heart. I mean that honestly, because I think I'll quote my wife and just say, if I were to go any further, I think she would probably look and say, why are you so, why do you arrogantly think the movie was made for you? Maybe it wasn't intended for you, and it's just like, only human arrogance would say the message must be meant for man, right? So I think that when I saw it, like there was some stuff that was like, okay, like I would run away from this. You know what I'm saying? As much as last week when we were talking about Mallrats, and I'm like, man, I feel like I'm talking with my peeps from back in the day. I think watching this, I'd be like, man, I wouldn't want any part of any of this. But that being said, I don't think it was meant for me. And then, as you pointed out, I really, really enjoyed that it was a happy ending and there were characters that were featured doing good things. Yeah. And I thought that was cool. I thought the reaction of when was a Ty suddenly was friends with the skater dude, but then kind of turned him away and shoved him away and everything like that. Just really kind of like very embarrassingly in public. You know, the Alicia Silverstone character's reaction was a genuine one, like, oh man, like, what are you doing? You know, I like that aspect of it very much. You know, some of the stuff was kind of like, oh, okay, this is getting pretty annoying. But then there were some heartwarming things, like when she's always taking care of her dad, right? Yeah. Like, yeah, you have to drink your orange juice. Speaking of putting a movie in its time and place, you have to drink your orange juice for health or for the vitamins or something like that. You know, I just, you know, Daddy, you can't eat this. You have to be eating this. And I just, yeah, I know that's kind of the trope of, you know, the daughter taking care of the father. But I like those interactions.
Pat, I chuckled a little bit when you mentioned trying to get your mom to watch movies, and you mentioned a good movie like Terminator. I feel like I did that once because there were certain times where I couldn't get anybody else to, I wanted to go see a movie, couldn't get anybody else to go, maybe couldn't even drive at that point. So finally I was like, hey Mom, there's this really, really cool movie I want to go see. Will you go the movie with me? And she's like, yeah, okay, sure, that's fine. And so we go, and the one and only time I remember ever doing that with my mom, or maybe the last time I remember doing that with my mom, was when I convinced her to take me and come with me to go see Ace Ventura 2: When Nature Calls.
Oh boy. The movie does not go well Enterprise.
I can't think of a more awkward. Maybe having your mom go with you to see Eyes Wide Shut would be more awkward than that, but I can't think of a more awkward movie to have gone to see with my mom than Ace Ventura 2.
Yeah, that would be
so. So here's the why is Gamora moment here. My mom somehow, my sister was, I think, home from college. I was working. I was at Hawthorne at the time. I remember my sister called me and says, "Oh my God, you'll never believe what happened." What? Mom got it in her head that she wanted to go see Step Brothers. So I went with Mom and Dad to go see Step Brothers.
Oh dear.
and in the theater, and I guess my mom absolutely loved it.
Good
and my dad, my dad absolutely was like, "What are we watching?" And it was like the scene with the drum set. My sister's like, "Oh my God, let me out of here!" But my mom, oh my gosh. So that was the, you know, that was the sometimes my mom could be quite paradoxical in her movie because she loved The Departed.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, Mom, good on you for that. But dear Lord, like, okay, you love The Departed. I mean, I'm not going to fault you for that. But there would just be times that, you know, yeah, Patrick, she said, oh dear, I'm just not the demographic. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Dear. Yeah, that's what it was. She says, I love you, kiddo, but I just know. But then she watched The Departed.
Just no.
Or go watch Step Brothers. Oh man.
So I mean, I think overall, I'll say for this one that what works for me in this movie is just, I think that the characters on the surface, if you've only ever watched the trailer of this, or if you've only ever heard other people talk about this movie, on the surface, it seems like it's a bunch of shallow, ditzy Beverly Hills teenagers, and that's what I thought of this movie until watching it this time. And then watching it this time, I'm like, you know what? Even if some of these characters, the way they talk or whatever, come across as seeming shallow, like they're really not. Like a lot of these characters, they really are complete people, and they're not bad people. Like sometimes I picture that in other movies, and I think these people are either being depicted as being less intelligent or less caring about others. And one of the things I really enjoyed watching this movie was for lack of a better term, I'm going to be cliche and just say it was kind of a feel-good movie. Like you came out of this movie feeling good, like that somebody was genuinely working towards the good of other people. And it was nice and refreshing to watch. And, I came out of this just feeling like, well, that was nice. Nice characters for a change. Now, on the flip side, on the same day, I was also watching the movie that I'm going to be doing as one of our Patreon shorts, and that was Angus. And that entire movie is basically the fat kid getting bullied.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bit of a flip between the two. I was like, I'm watching one movie where there's a kid getting bullied and picked on all the time, and I'm watching another one where the main character genuinely seems to want to help people, even though there's a little manipulation in there here and there. She genuinely wants to help people because it's the right thing to do. Like she's not, it's not like the movies where we got to give the nerdy girl a makeover because it's part of a bet to see if we can get her to go to prom with the hot guy, or it's not like there's other motivations going on. So if there's one thing that I think works for me in this movie, feeling like I was watching it for the first time this time, was I genuinely like the characters that are in this movie. Like they genuinely seem to be nice people for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, a lot of it, like you said, Pat, I was not the target demographic for this movie when it came out in 1995. I'm still probably not the target demographic now. It doesn't hurt that, having been an English teacher, I know the original Emma story. So that part doesn't hurt because I can make those connections and then I can see that for what it is as an adaptation of an older novel. But yeah, I think my viewing of it this time around, and I'm only speaking for myself, my viewing of it this time around is I didn't need to be the target demographic for the way the story was told. I think I am the target demographic for what the story is telling. And so I think that's why I think I made a stronger connection to it than I may have done the time I might have seen it before.
There you go.
So, all right. Before we get into 3 questions, do we have anything else we want to say about Clueless?
I can relate with the movie watching scene when he's trying to get her to watch Spartacus.
Yes.
Or how did you pronounce it? Sparactius or whatever.
Sparacticus or something, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I can't relate because he was homosexual, so that's why he was, kind of not playing into her advances and all that kind of stuff. But I can relate on a level of, one of the early couple times that, we're trying to watch a movie, and I think it was The Usual Suspects. And I was trying to Tammy, are you watching? Do you need to watch this whole movie? This is amazing. I had just seen it back in college. I think I'd just seen it the month before. And it was that movie was just incredible and mind blowing and the whole thing. And I was trying to watch it with her and enjoy the movie. And she just was not into it at all, in the same level. And I just came across as annoying, why are you not paying attention to this movie? And she's kind of why are you not paying attention to me? And it just, the movie watching did not go well, Enterprise. Let's put it that way. So I can kind of empathize with that scene as well. Obviously not the way that scene plays out, but in the long term, but that I did find that pretty funny.
To get a little bit of chuckle because as I'm watching this, channeling Captain Over.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Joey, do you like watching gladiator movies? I think it's time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. What 90s slang do you still use today?
Whatever.
Yeah.
That one tends to come out unprompted.
Sometimes I tend to use, and this is probably just when I'm by myself, but responding to an email, I tend to use "bite me" a lot.
Yeah.
Now in the 90s itself, I don't know that I've done that so much lately, but when I had younger siblings, I still have younger siblings, but when I had younger siblings and they were younger in the 90s, I feel like butt munch got used a lot.
That's a pretty funny one.
I think that was a Beavis and Butthead special.
Yeah. Were they watching Beavis and Butthead in this one?
Yes.
She was watching Beavis and Butthead because he tried to change the channel.
He wanted to watch CNN, and she wanted to watch Beavis and Butthead.
Okay, like I get it, like watching CNN important, so I was kind of down with him on that. But the fact that she was watching Beavis and Butthead, her stock like zoomed to the ceiling when that happened. Because I think she was watching Ren and Stimpy later then too.
Yes.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Now, I will say I do use a lot of 90s slang fairly regularly, but that's only to make my kids, specifically my daughter, look at me awkwardly.
And groan.
What slang? I got to look up 90s slang words.
You know, occasionally, booyah, home skillet.
Booyah, home skillet. Okay.
Well, those are two separate ones.
Okay.
What did chillin' like a villain? I think I've told her once or twice that she needs to chillax. Because of The Simpsons, she knows eat my shorts. I've said that one a couple of times. Regularly calling people homies.
Rolling with the homies.
Yep.
You're going to have homies. You got to roll with them.
Yeah. My bad. Aw, snap.
Aw, snap.
Snap, yeah. Yeah.
I do say sweet a lot. You know, like that's totally
so do
sweet.
I.
Sweet.
I actually use that in my work chats more than I should.
Oh, yeah? I will occasionally still say totally sweet or sometimes super sweet.
Oh, wow. No, I don't. I don't know that I have things that I would say are totally or super sweet. That's good.
I like to.
My bad.
I like to run little
I say my bad a lot.
Yeah.
Is that 90s though? I don't know.
I think it is. I mean, well, or you shorten it up with just Mubby.
Okay, no.
I don't do that. No, I don't do that.
If you're in a hurry.
No. No.
Oh, okay.
No one is in that much of a hurry.
Okay. All right. That's right.
No. The debate in my house was whether not was 90s slang or not.
I would say so. I mean, it's. I feel like popularized, whether it came out earlier, popularized by Wayne's World.
There you go. Yeah.
So I'd call it 90s.
Hey, I got this one. Gotta bounce.
Yeah.
Well,
but I usually say I got a jet. I don't know. Is jet 90s or is that even? Is that older?
I don't know. Sometimes I say I'm outie.
Yeah, I'll use that once in a while, and that was in the movie.
I mean, I guess I'd be careful what I say, otherwise Bo's gonna start wigging out again.
It's just one of my things, man. Taking words and shortening them for no reason. I just don't know.
You know, you're not a Newspeak fan from 1984.
No, like obvi. No, that's not a word.
Oh, have I told you the one that I absolutely hate? It's not a 90s thing. It's a today thing. Every time I have a visceral reaction where there are parts of my body that clench up uncontrollably when I hear the word hoko.
Ah, yeah.
For homecoming, that's a little rough. That's a little rough.
I absolutely hate it.
That one, oddly enough, while I do not like, I know why it exists. Like obvi, I can't tell you why it exists, but I know why hoko exists.
Hoko exists because there is a devil and he hates us.
Oh, it's social media hashtags.
Oh, well, again, I repeat my earlier comment because there is a devil and he hates us.
I agree,
Okay.
but I'm telling you, that's what it's all about with the Hoko, man.
Okay.
We had to shorten it for hashtags and vertical screen videos and all that nonsense.
Yeah, using Hoko is just totally Sigma. I mean, you got to use the skibbity whole word.
Come on. We have now devolved. I'm impressed that I think you even use those right, which I'm not sure I can. So well done, sir.
Yeah.
I can't. You know, the best part is that it's totally cringe for kids to hear it, right?
Oh God.
Like
yeah.
I feel like any other slang, any other generational thing, if like, you know, like or like an adult or an old uses it, it's just like, oh, okay, man, they're down with it. That's cool. But now it's like even the kids realize it's lame.
There's a guy at work. He's got a skibbity sticker on his laptop.
Oh, good.
It's just one of those things that they all just look at him and shake their head. They're like, no. You're not allowed.
That is so not cool.
I'm sure it's Ohio or some nonsense. And I do my best to avoid knowing, because if I know, I might use it, and I know I'm not allowed. So the less I know, the better.
And not knowing is the other half of the battle.
It's right, and not knowing means if they're talking about me, I can just go. Yeah.
If G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle, that means the other half is not knowing. And
Indeed.
I'm perfectly fine with that 50%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. All right. Number 2, how did your first driving test go?
I always say when people ask me this question, like I sort of got lucky or cheated in a way. We had that bypass program.
You got lucky on your first driving test?
No, wait.
Were you,
not what I said.
Yes, no,
really?
that's exactly what you said. Was your driving test in a Volkswagen?
A big one.
Oh.
Bo, blink twice if you're under duress.
Who's Duress?
The guy in the back of the Volkswagen.
And now is the time on Sprockets when we lose Bo for a few minutes. Somewhere in the last 60 seconds is our episode title. I don't know where it is, but somewhere. So you're saying your driving test went really well?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had a program in high school where you could bypass the DMV driving test if you did well enough in driver's ed at school and on your driver's ed final road test. So I did well enough that I walked into the DMV and they handed me my stuff and I went away. And that was the last driving test I took.
There you go.
You know, knock on wood, I've never had to take another driving test. So
nice.
Yeah, it went really well.
That's what I hear.
Well done.
Bo, I don't think that hand gesture is from the 90s. Sometimes I wish this was a video podcast.
Oh my gosh. It'd be like,
please God, no.
I feel
I'd
like
have to like wear a real shirt instead of whatever I had on.
I feel like we'd be some like that would turn us into like some random avant-garde comedy thing.
I mean, I didn't want the audience to find out that we do this shirtless, but sure, Bo, I guess share that with everybody.
I'm wearing a shirt, just not maybe a streaming approved shirt.
Oh,
that's
okay.
all.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. Pat, I can only guess how your driving test went. It probably went fine.
No, did not go well.
Okay, then regale us.
I had an automatic fail on the driver's test.
Really?
Yeah, it's like.
Were you playing your trumpet while driving during the test?
No, I would have passed with that.
Oh, okay.
No, it was something about 86 and a 30. No, I'm kidding. There's nothing that cool. No, I was driving the car And
Pat's driving test was the inspiration for the Fast and Furious franchise.
Exactly. And the driving instructor asked me, it was an automatic fail because we were driving in a neighborhood. There was not another car on the road. No one was around. He says, can you please pull the car over to the curb and bring it to a complete stop? So I did. And he says, I'm sorry, that's an automatic fail. And I said, did I miss something? You didn't signal. And I said, oh, I said, well, actually, you know what? Strangely enough, I guess I did try to argue my way out of it. I said, okay, well, with due respect, who was I signaling to? There was no one else on the road. And then it was like, well, I'm sorry. It's just you need to signal every time you're making a lane change or pulling to the side of the road or any of that kind of thing. And I was like, and I kind of wanted to argue the point. I said, well, I guess I would, but if there's no one there, I wasn't making a big turn. I wasn't changing lanes. You told me to pull to the side of the road, so I did. Well, I shouldn't have to tell you to signal. And then I just wanted to, and then in my mind, I was kind of like, I see. So what you want is just mindless automatons driving the car, people that aren't aware of their, situation. I was aware of the situation that there was not another individual anywhere on the road. We were like in a neighborhood on a drive into a neighborhood. So it wasn't even like driveways and houses around. It was an abandoned stretch of road. And I read the situation. I saw that there was no other cars. So I pulled the vehicle to the side of the road. But you would rather have me like just ignore all that and just signal without thinking. But then I'm like, okay, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just going to say, I'm going to take my lumps. He had me, and all that kind of thing. So it was like a little bit of a, back in the day, I just like to argue. So it was one of those, like having to bite my tongue was more painful than having to go to the DMV to take the road test. And then when I took the road test, it was fine. And I passed that one. Okay. And then there was also the same thing happened with my motorcycle test.
I was going to ask, how was your motorcycle version?
And you guys are going to laugh when I say this, and this is kind of, sometimes it's kind of allegorical to my life. And I went to the bike test and I didn't go fast enough through all of the little, what do you call it? The little exercises, the cone weaves, the turn, the turn and stop. There were a whole bunch of things. And I just will tend to do things like, and it's problematic, but I mean, like, sometimes I like to go slow and just be very methodical and think my way through and make sure everything's set, right? And I got done, and the riding instructor came over and he shook his head and he's like, "Hey, I'm really sorry." And I think you had 2 chances to do it, but he says, like, you're doing everything right. It's just you were not above the minimum time for the exercise. And I was like, and that one hurt. Like I was crushed with that. Like I'm just like, oh, okay. And then it was like, well, shoot. And then it was funny because afterwards he came over and I think he was trying to make me feel better, but he's just like, look, I want you to let you know that what you were demonstrating was like safe riding, like being aware of things and taking your time. And boy, that makes all the sense in the world. And there's some people that are going to get their license that I don't think are as safe on the road as you would be. And I think what you demonstrated today was a much more cautious and safe approach, which is what you need to do when you're on the road with a bunch of other cars. And I'm like, okay, then why are they getting their license and I'm not? If that, but it was again one of those things like that one kind of stunk, but sometimes that's my thing too, is like and that's something I've really, like, sometimes you just kind of have to give it hell. So I made it a point with the rest of my time on a motorcycle is to never wait around and to make sure, I'm not going to get in trouble for going too slow again.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the last thing my son would need to hear is, well, you just didn't go fast enough.
Yeah. Yep. That was all the motivation I needed. But no, and it was the same thing. And again, I guess I guess it makes sense probably for a kid, I mean, there's no way to polish a turd, right? Like, I mean, it stung and it was like, oh, well, but, also I'd ridden for, whatever it was, 8 hours on a weekend in a parking lot full of cones. Right. And I was in that class with a bunch of, I think I was the youngest in there. There was also a bunch of adults. I think my brother and I took it. We were the youngest, and it was a bunch of adults that had been riding motorcycles for years, but never had a license. And so it was kind of like, yeah, that stunk. But you know what? From a safety perspective, was to have a permit, get a bike, and ride around on a permit, like being out on the road and practice. With like under my dad's supervision, practice those skills in the parking lot. Really get to know riding on the road and riding during the day, and really building up a little bit of that like experience, and then going and taking the riding test. And I think that made probably long term, that was probably better. You know what I'm saying? And in simple point of fact, that whole like going fast enough thing, that makes sense, right? Like, you got to keep up with the flow of traffic too. So, ego never does anybody any good anywhere. So I'm not going to have an ego about it and say, yeah, I knew what I was doing. So it when I look back on that now and I think, man, I've been on a motorcycle for 8 hours and I could have basically just gotten a waiver that would allow me to get a bike license, with no supervision, no hours required. Like, when kids are driving now, they got to have 50 hours before they go in, like none of that. So I think long-term, I think that was probably for the better, that kind of forced me to say, okay, I got to go and ride around on the street under my dad's supervision and, go practice those fundamentals in a parking lot. And then, when he says like, okay, let's go take your driving test, then that made me earn it a little bit more. So.
Yeah, my driving test was, I'll say uneventful, but it ended up being like 2 months later than I wanted it to be. Because I was trying to work it out somehow, and I was like, you know what, if I take it through school, then I'm not going to be, when my birthday hits, I won't be able to get my license because I won't be done with the class in school. So I asked my parents, I was like, can I take this outside of school? Can I do one of the, like, Adams School of Driving or whatever the different ones were at the time? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So I did one of the private schools, and I had been going, and I was all set to be able to get my stuff done by the time my birthday hit in early December. And the driving school that I was at, our instructor, like, just quit and disappeared in, I want to say November, whenever it was.
You guys were that terrible. You scared him away.
Apparently, the guy just like dropped off the face of the earth, and they then tried to scramble to get us another instructor. Well, the problem was they didn't get another instructor until, I want to say, January. And so by the time, so I mean, I was upset. Like I was when I turned 16, I expected, I want to get my license when I'm 16. I want to drive. I want to, not have to be at the mercy of people driving me around anymore. I want to get my license when I'm 16. And so I was not a happy 16-year-old when that rolled around, and I still needed to finish up some of my highway driving and some of the other stuff as part of the class. So I didn't get the paperwork I needed to take to the DMV so I could do my other driving test until maybe late January, early February. And so I was not a happy camper. Now, everything was fine. My driving test, uneventful. I passed. It was all fine. But it was just 2 months later than I wanted it to be. So I was not
delayed.
Not a fan of that. I did not want the delay.
Yeah.
No.
I remember there was, after that, I got my bike, rode around for a couple of years, and then I went back and I think I took because they recommended that, taking the rider class again, or there was an advanced rider class, which by advanced was just brush up on skills and all that. And I want to say that same exercise, I kind of got my revenge on that, the one that I supposedly went too slow. When we went back a couple of years later, and you brought your own bike, and I met some cool guys there, and there was a guy, I think, from the Navy base that was there getting his license or brushing up, and he had a Gixxer 600. And I remember that through that same drill, it was the cornering one, that I was stuck on going too slow. We were just going around and practicing it. They just have us going on loops, and the two of us got racing through it, trying to stay on each other's tail. And I remember, I think we started dragging hard parts as we were going through the turn. So I think the instructor was like, okay, guys, let's just slow down here. And so that was my moral victory few years later. But that was my moral victory, is like, okay, now he's telling me I'm going too fast. I'm racing the guy from the Navy base. Okay. That now I feel better. proving my point that I said a few minutes ago that ego never did anyone any good, because when you start doing that, that's usually when you end up crashing. But that being said, sometimes riding those things can make you do silly things. I'll leave it at that.
That being said, you survived and everything's okay.
Everything's okay.
Very true. All right, question number 3. We tend to like to have a food question here and there, although depending on what we may have been like in high school, whether you want to call this food or not, that's in the eye of the beholder, or the stomach of the beholder, as the case may be. What would your typical lunch have been in high school?
Cafeteria pizza, French fries, and a Nutty Buddy.
You and I are almost exactly the same, Bo.
That's awesome.
My answer was a slice of sausage pizza from the cafeteria, soggy cafeteria fries, a Coke, and one.
Oh yeah, Coke. Good
Coke.
Call.
Yeah, and 1.5 of the Hostess cupcakes in a 2-pack.
There you go.
Because the other half, as my wife pointed out when I was explaining this to my daughter earlier, because the other half of that second Hostess cupcake is used for throwing.
Ah, well, and the freshman cafeteria made throwing fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nora kind of looked at me like, "Wait, what? Why didn't you eat all of the Hostess cupcake?" I said, "Because that other half's for throwing." And because Sharon was in one of the tables that was in the line of fire between the table we were throwing at, their table sometimes was on the receiving end of that second half of that one Hostess cupcake.
Oh boy!
And I thought you were gonna say that the other half went to Sharon.
Not at that point, no.
Nope.
No. But when we would go through the line in the cafeteria, and this, I guess this is apparently the first thing I ever gave her, was we were going through the line in the cafeteria, and I had a dime was my change from whatever I bought, and I think I just turned and I gave it to her, and she has saved that dime and still has it in a box somewhere.
Oh,
so
look at that.
So, see, kids, I don't know what the lesson is from that, but keep the change.
Marriage.
Yes.
Marriage, it brings us together.
If you've got a dime, you two can fall in love.
There you go.
But yes, my typical lunch would have been, I don't even tell you what my typical breakfast would be, because it explains even more why I got the diabetes. But the typical lunch is a slice of pizza, soggy cafeteria fries, a Coke, and 75% of a Hostess cupcake.
Yeah, those fries were always soggy, weren't they? They never crisped up.
There was always the running rumor that the cafeteria was located underneath the bathrooms.
Yeah.
That's why the fries were soggy.
Yeah, that's funny. Because they were never crispy.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I got to tell you, even though I'm sure from a food quality standpoint, once we got to high school, the pizza was maybe a step up from what we were used to.
Sure.
There is something about that old sheet pan of pizza from middle school. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever seen the recipes flying around on social media, but it's out there.
Oh, really?
One of these days, I'm going to get my act together and make that sucker.
Well, like my kids.
Talk about some nostalgia.
I mean, my kids now at the high schools they go to, they've got sushi.
Well, that's inappropriate. I mean, I'm wary about grocery store sushi. I'm not even going to tell you what I think about high school cafeteria sushi. High school cafeteria sushi. I have not worked.
Patrick, what about you? What was your typical high school lunch?
I've been working on it. I think I mostly, I think I brought a lunch. There was a deli line when I went to the cafeteria, and I'd always get a sandwich made. Love those sandwiches with sliced, fresh stuff on it. I think maybe the pizza. I don't think of myself as a pizza snob, but I don't remember eating a lot of pizza. I've probably eaten way too many French fries in my life. Like, I'm just a sucker for, I can avoid sweets and treats and stuff pretty easily, but salts, man, that one's,
I'm with you. Give me that French fries.
Yeah, and our fries, they got them pretty crisp. Even if it's a low quality French fry, as long as it's crisp, that works.
I can agree with that in a lot of ways.
or eat, the only way they work if they're not crisp is if they just like chop a potato into the frying pan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That works. But I know what you're saying. It's like those I think it was crinkle cut fries that never crisped up, and when you took a bite, it felt like powder on the inside, for lack of a better description.
Okay, so here's a question, because I have been told by people that listen to our show that they really enjoy it when we get real specific on food.
Yeah.
And that they would be happy just listening to us talk about food for an entire whatever the episode would be. Yeah. So I'm going to ask a follow-up tangent question. Best fries in the Chicago area.
Oh God, bless it all.
Ready, go.
Chicago area.
I don't know that I know the answer to this, because I can't say that I've gotten fries at a lot of different places in the area. And I know that they're not the best fries in the world, but I love them. I'm always going to go for some Portillo's fries.
Portillo's fries, that's a good bit of business.
Especially Portillo's cheese fries. If I get the cheese fries, then
yeah.
But
we were just at there's a sub sandwich place called Penn Station.
Penn Station? Oh yeah, those have been around for a while.
We were down in Lombard.
Okay.
And we drove past one, and I haven't been to one of those in years.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh crap, well, we're going there for lunch. So we pulled in. And those were some really good French fries. And I think I know why. They fry them in peanut oil.
Oh. Which
isn't done very often anymore for reasons. Those were very good. The other place I've really loved, and I don't know if it's still open. There's a place in Evanston. It's a hot dog joint called Edzo's.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been there, but I've heard of it.
You know, you in those old school places, you know, they have those big menu boards. They put the letters up and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
One whole menu board at Edzo's is all French fries. Because they do so many things to the French fries.
Okay.
Well, I am partial to what they call old fries. You know how every once in a while, if you go to McDonald's or somewhere, you'll get a super crispy one?
Yeah.
That's like a leftover from an old batch or something?
Sure. Yeah.
That's essentially what they do, but they do it on purpose. Essentially, they end up frying them twice.
Okay.
Fry them once, take them out, and then drop them in again. Something about those crispy old fries, as they call them.
Okay.
And really anything on the Edzo's menu is really good, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep you're not the first or even second person to mention Edzo's to me, so I gotta go there sometime.
Yeah, it's worth a drive. If you're anywhere in that general vicinity, it's.
And there's a few times I can't remember the names of the places, but there's been a few times where like I've been down every once in a while, not every year, but every once in a while, if I'm doing some Christmas shopping or something, I'll just like randomly start driving towards Chicago. And I might like look for some little, like a music store or something, just in a little neighborhood spot as you get into like the neighborhoods. And there have been plenty of times where for lunch or something, I'll stop at like a little diner or a little hot dog place or something like that. Go in and you know, they'll have some really good fries or sides or stuff like that. I don't know the names of the places though. Like part of me is like, man, I wish I could remember the name of that place so I can go back there again. But half the time I'm just stopping real quick to get some lunch, then go on my way. And I didn't really pay much attention to what the place was called, but they're like it's the mom and pop place. It's probably owned by a Greek family or something like that. And
we drove past, you know, and a story that confirms that our phones listen to us too much. We drove down on the way to Lombard. We drove through Elmhurst, and there was this little stand on a corner called Hamburger Heaven or something like that.
Okay.
Literally like no indoor seating, just outdoor walk up windows. Not 2 hours after we get home, there's a post that came up on social media about this Hamburger Heaven place that is supposed to be amazing, and they've been there for 50 years and all this stuff. It was crazy. So I do hope to try that place sometime now that I know where it is.
I was trying to, the one thing it made me think of, I was trying to remember how the fries were. John and I, when we were on our way somewhere one time, we stopped at Johnny's in.
Oh, sure.
Is that
Yeah.
Elmwood Park?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, probably one of the best Italian beefs I've ever had. And I think the fries were good too. I don't remember much about the fries. I just mostly remember the Italian beef sandwich. But most times if I stop somewhere, get an Italian beef, it's probably gonna have some good fries to go with it.
Yeah.
So Pat, did you have? I know you got disconnected a little bit on there, but did you have one or two spots with good fries?
Spots with good fries, man. I'll tell you, God, I've never met a French fry I really didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
That's my dilemma. You know what I'm saying? And boy, I would think you'd think with all the time I was disconnected and trying to figure out how to reconnect and that whole bit of business, I was able to figure something out. But I tend to like, the Gene and Jude's where they just chop the potatoes right into the frying thing is pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the, honestly, McDonald's fries hit the spot. Burger King fries hit the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Bologna beef fries hit the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet potato fries hit the spot. I love, all the different sauces I put on my fries. Sometimes I'll take fries and I'll like chop up and grill a bunch of vegetables and make like a whole dish out of that. I don't know if that's like got an official name or not. Bone of beef, sometimes I'll get a bowl and I'll get an order of fries and mix it in with the bowl. So yeah, I love French fries.
I like the onion gravy fries at Austin's, but they don't like me anymore.
There's been some places where fries, when they're overly like drippy, greasy, that gets a little bit rough. Culver's fries are really good. Where did I go the other day that were really good? Oh, I know. When we were down a couple of weeks ago, and then a month ago we were down in Ohio. Daniela was riding in one of the horse shows. I'm trying to remember the town we were in. I could look it up on my phone instead. Just outside of Dayton, and it was at the horse arena. They had a cafeteria, like a food bar. Man, the fries there were really good. That was a good bit of business right there.
Well, as we do on every episode, I think I've just made myself hungry now.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I think I got to go do some fries.
I know. All right. Well, that's going to do it for Clueless. We are not clueless, clearly, about fries and how much we love them, but that's going to do it for this one. So if you're catching up with us, we're at 30podcast.com is our website, at 30podcast on most of the different social medias. If you're on Blue Sky, Threads, any of those, Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you're going to call it, we're on all those spots, so you can check us out over there. This is our Teenagers Month. Our Patreon episodes are Real Genius from 85 and Angus from 95 is the Patreon short. You can get that one for free by joining us over there on Patreon. Real Genius is available to our paid subscribers over there. And thank you to all those who do. That is just, it's so helpful for us. We really appreciate it. Our regular episodes this month, last week we did Mallrats. This week is Clueless. We got coming up here real fast. Actually, it's our 575th episode. I feel like we just did 500 not that long ago.
Wow.
And we're already 575 is Back to the Future. So as part of our 10th anniversary rewatch of movies we've already done before, we're looking back at one of the earliest ones we did back in our first year of podcasting, Back to the Future. So we'll be covering that one here in just probably a couple days or so. You'll be hearing that one. And then Dangerous Minds and Empire Records are going to finish off the month for us. So that is our Teenager Month. Gentlemen, as always, it's good to be here with you.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you, John.
All right, everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we will see you back here next time.
Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock, they're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can't choose, even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other, please add a word to your mother. is done. Action-packed fun.